Susanna. I mean, not...
What borderline
You
business?
see, the mind
Borderline what?
is the only
Borderline
organ.
between what and what? Melvin.
It's a condition, Susanna.
So, welcome one and all to my first video of the year. You know, I actually had a really tough time deciding what I was gonna make this video about. Recently, I've been watching, a lot of people talking about conspiracies and, a bunch of, really dark things and the occult and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, I don't necessarily have any personal experience relating to anything conspiratorial or, anything like that. But I did actually realize that I did come into contact with a person who was displaying extremely disturbing behavior. This person had some sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, like some kind of vibe to them. And, like a lot of the things that they did and what they said and their life experience, like there were some very disturbing aspects that were brought to light while I was with this person. And this person actually happened to be one of my ex-girlfriends. It was actually the last girlfriend that I had. And I think now it's probably been a year since things have ended, right? And so another reason, excuse me for the long-winded intro, but another reason why I also thought about making this was because, there's been a lot of strange things happening in my life since then. And before that too, but, closer to the time that ended, I started to realize a bunch of things about that particular situation or relationship that were actually very off-putting. But what I also realized is it's not just tied to that person. The more I looked into these certain behaviors and, like these phenomena, I guess you would call it that, I saw that it's actually a widespread thing. It's not just tied to this one personal experience that I had with this one particular person. It's actually something that I saw a lot of people talk about, I saw a lot of memes, a lot of, like, what would you call them really? Like these kind of weird mind maps that, that talk about this or display a certain amount of these characteristics that this person, was displaying or was into or whatever. And and then it kind of made sense in my mind. Like, wait a second, it's not just that in the past two relationships that I've been in, it was just like, I got the needle in the haystack every time. It's like these things are actually prevalent all around the world, mostly in the West, I would assume, right? But so I am just gonna talk about, some of the things that I saw and what I experienced, certain things that this person did, that, I don't know, were very, some of it could, I guess, be chalked up to like ignorance or stupidity or something like that. Just like ignorance, but there was a certain sinister, I don't want to use this word, but there was this sinister vibe, that was emanating from everything this person did and what they said. And so now that that's over, I think I'm going to get into it. But one more thing that I just wanted to mention was this is not some, like this involuntarily, celibate manifesto thing where I'm saying, all girls are like this, and man, you gotta watch out because, A, B, and C, and, screw them and whatever. But these are things that I personally experienced, right? With multiple people. I said the last two, but I'm just gonna talk about the last girl that I was with. And none of this is scripted. I'm just sitting here in a room, and I apologize. It's not gonna be very flashy or anything, But I did, take the chance to like walk around and record some of my surroundings because, as you could have guessed by the name, I am in China right now. Yeah, I'm currently working in China right now, and yeah. And that's a whole other story that we'll get into, depending. But I'll probably share it at some point. So, yeah, this is not a big thing. This is not a big thing about all women or this or that, or they're bad or they suck. But I think this will, in the end, be more of a cautionary tale, a cautionary tale for the people who see the signs. And, you gotta believe me, the signs are there. And as I said, it's not scripted, so if you see, I might trail off, and it might turn into a rambling and whatever. And even, I guess if you're still even watching this, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be here to stay, right? So, let's get into the first thing, the first thing that this person was kind of into, right? So the first thing that this person had a really vested interest in was collecting crystals. Yes, crystals. I saw that in recent years, there's been a lot of memes about it, a lot of jokes. I don't think this is even something new, I think this is like very widespread. Everybody knows about crystal collecting. But, it's not really the collecting aspect of it, that made it strange. Like, it kind of drifts into, like first it's a hobby about collecting and stuff, but then there's a more esoteric side to it. Like people really start to like believe in it at a certain point, I'm sure you've heard about like, a crystal being rubbed on you and then like somehow that's gonna heal you, or it's gonna ward off bad spirits, or it's gonna do something that, there's some kind of benefit to it, or actually, if you want this kind of outcome, you should use this crystal or that crystal, or and I must say I'm not very knowledgeable about it. I've had friends that were interested in this, that also collected, but then also had added a strange belief attached to it. Now, me personally, I'm not really a person that has one main belief, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna sit there and call everything satanic. Although, in recent years, I've seen a lot of things, that would bring a person to believe that there is something really strange going on. There's something really strange going on with the world, and for lack of a better word, there's some evil stuff that's occurring, around the world, whether it be events or whether it be the habits of people or their interests and everything. But anyway, see, I went off on a tangent again. The crystal thing. So this girl had like a very, very firm belief in crystals, in the power that they could heal you, they can use them to, I don't know, like solve problems or bring good luck and anything. And you know what? On their own, if that was the only thing, that person was into, on its own, it's absolutely, as far as I can tell, it's not that big of a deal. Because come on, man, it's just some rocks. And, like a lot of people have like fringe beliefs and stuff, a lot of people are superstitious. And so, I mean, that's something that you can really look past. You can look past that and there'll be no problem. But, unfortunately, that was not the only thing. That was definitely not the only thing they were into. And as we go along, it's going to start to paint a really, really pretty picture for you. And I'm going to try and put in some pictures and stuff, just to show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so that was the first thing, right? And you'll see this is going to get elaborate, all right? But anyway, let's go on. So, the crystals were one of the things, or the first thing really, I wanted to talk about, right? And upon bringing that up, I mean, you could tell. I mean, there was no real. I mean, it's like you're probably thinking to yourself, like, what is this guy even on about? Is this just some, is this just some dumbass, spouting? Okay, hear me out. The second thing. Now, for all the guys out there, okay, and even maybe some girls, if a girl ever happens to listen to this, which I don't know if it's ever going to get pushed by the algorithm, but the second thing I wanted to talk about was the drape, all right, if that's even the right word for it. So, for the guys out there, the guys that, go around, I guess you would say like the players, the guys who, meet a lot of girls and go back to their place and, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but right above their bed, there's always, not always, but with these particular types of people, this archetype, right? There's always this strange drape, right? Like hung, like on the wall, nailed to the wall or whatever. And it always has this strange esoteric, like symbol on it, And I guess you would say, like upon first glance, oh, this person is into fantasy. This person is just, they're like a whimsy, like free-spirited person, and they just have this, like, this fantastical stuff in their room, man. Dungeons and Dragons, just like cool magic, I don't even know what to relate it to. But, and this is, I think, a part where people are going to get a little bit mad, right, for me bringing this up. But, if you've seen that, okay, and be honest with yourself, too, and this is going to lead into the next topic. It seems to me that every time they have something like that, and you're going to call me a freak, you're going to call me like, some kind of, you're going to think I'm one of the people who are still, under the influence of the 80s satanic panic, and I'm like this Bible thumper, and I'm like, oh, that thing has 6 sides to it, so it must be evil. It's nothing like that at all. But let's go. So you'll notice they have that drape above their bed. And the second thing that you will notice, if you ever inquired about it, if you ever asked them, because I think it's a normal question, and I think it's, it's a pretty important question, at least for me, you can call me what you want. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm nothing. All right. I don't belong to any. I don't have an vested interest in politics anymore. It's all just very creepy. But you'll hear them say, if you ask them, how many people have you slept with in your life? How many bodies do you have? That's what the kids are saying nowadays. And you'll notice that every single time, right, they answer that, they will give you a number that's leaning toward more of the extreme amounts, okay? Now, what is an extreme amount of people to sleep with, I think, as for a woman, I'm not talking for anyone. I'm not like pulling this philosophy from anything. This is just my personal view, and it'll make sense as things go along. But you'll notice that those numbers will always be an extreme. What's an extreme number? Maybe like, I don't know, dude, 20, 30, 40, 100, because it goes there. It certainly does. And we're talking about people who are like maybe 20 years old, maybe 25, 26. I'm not a prude. I know times have changed. I know things aren't the way they used to be anymore. And kind of if you look back, the world's always been kind of strange, in the, with the patterns and stuff. But they'll always tell you that, they slept with a lot of people. And, it also depends on your view, on sleeping with someone, if you think that is actually, I'm not saying you have to wait till you get married. I'm not even saying as much as it's a bad, like sleeping with someone is like a bad thing, and it's like, it's something you can only do under certain conditions. But it starts to paint a picture, you know what I mean? It starts to paint a little bit of a picture. And you start to wonder, And so they give you the amount, and, the first thing is the crystals, yeah? What can we say about it? Yeah, it's just some kind of hobby, Nothing to see here. Now the drapes in the room. Oh, okay. So this is just some free spirit hippy-dippy person that, that happened to have slept with a lot of people. Okay, no problem. Why is the drape there? Why is it there? And why is it that it's always some kind of weird Eastern, and let me get this straight. I'm not from the West. I'm not an American. You understand what I mean? Not from Britain either. You understand? Like I'm from a place where the grass is tall, okay? And I'll disclose that at some point. But it's always this weird, like, sort of almost like a cult-related thing. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really go into specifics, and I'm sure they're not all the same. Those drapes and the symbolism that's apparent in them, not always the same. I think sometimes, it could just be like some creative, the person was just doing it for fun. They were just being creative, whatever. Why is the drape there? You probably think at this point I'm insane. But why is the drape there? And why is it above the bed? It's it's kind of weird, right? It's kind of like the position or the location of that drape. It's like what? It's above the bed, the person, what do you do in a bed? You understand what I mean? What, you sleep, of course, and you sit on it and you whatever, But it also happens to be the place, where the deed is done, most of the time. And so now what do you have? We have the crystals. We have the strange kind of occult drape, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's not the right word. Like I say, I'm just talking to you guys. But, as I go on, I'll try and stick more to the point, because I know, like, I'm going all over the place, It's quite early in the morning. And so, and they happen to have slept with a lot of people. Okay, no problem, whatever. We go on. Now, all of these things were displayed by this person that I was with, right? And it's forming an archetype. Let me cut right to the next one, the clothing. I remember a time where I was with this person, and we've recently got into the relationship. At that point, things were still fresh. And we went to a supermarket, because we were going to have this really nice adventure. We were actually going to do some urban exploring and whatever. And we were getting supplies and food and stuff. But before that, I went to her house to pick her up. And she came out, with this outfit, right? Like, I've searched Google, to try find, like, some examples of it, but I can't really. I'll try and put up something that's similar, but, this outfit that she was wearing was so extremely revealing, like, on her bottom half, right? Legs and buttocks and whatever, but whatever. That, I wanted to, I just maybe wanted to tell her, look, man, a person has freedom to do as they wish, whether you're, like, in a relationship or not, do as they wish, like, within the bounds, while being reasonable. But I was quite shocked, like, we're about to go into, like, public, and it's not, don't take it the wrong way, it's not me saying that, like, I'd be embarrassed. It's actually something much worse than that, right? So we went out, and as we went into the supermarket, this person was wearing their outfit, their new outfit that they had just chosen out, knowing that we were going to go out. And we get out of the car and we walk in there. And so, as soon as we enter, we were like in a kind of like not too sketchy of an area, but the people came out, like they were on their way out of the store. We were on our way in, and they said they basically exclaimed, because they were like kind of trashy, these people, white trash, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to label them as such, but I mean, like, in the way that they behaved. And they were saying things to the effect of, like, God damn, look at this thing. Look at this thing, that's walking around here. Man. Saying something to the effect of, yeah, I wish she was hanging out with them. Like, they want to take her home or something. And it was this man and his wife, which in its own right was, I don't know, kind of creepy, kind of disturbing. Now, when that happened, I wasn't paying too much attention, my head was all over the place, I think I was also under the influence at that time a little bit as well, maybe a little bit drunk or something. And so, she told me, that these people had just done this, and, like, she was kind of like, telling me, like, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you doing anything about this? They just did this. I'm your girl. She didn't say it in those words. But I ended up going out, like, after those people. And I actually, like, I yelled at them. And I was like, yo, what the like, you can't talk to my girl this way. You understand what I mean? And I was like all pumped with bravado, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta show this girl that I care about her right now, and that I'll defend her honor, so to speak, And I couldn't get to him, and I couldn't get into a fist fight. Now, let me just put it into perspective. The place that I'm from, it's not uncommon if you initiate something with someone, it's very possible that, they can pull out something on you, man. They can pull out a gun. They can pull out a weapon, and things get out of hand, especially in that area. Things do get out of hand. Now, looking back upon that, because it's not something that just happened once. And I'm sure it's something that happened with a lot of guys as well. So what happened in the end was, this was a form of instigation. She wanted to instigate something. I don't know if instigation's a word, but she wanted to instigate something. Because she knew that by dressing that way, because it was crazy. It was crazy, man. I'm not even exaggerating. Even I don't even know. People are always talking about Skid Row. I don't know much about that place. I've seen some pictures, right? And there are girls standing there on the street. It was something like that, but almost worse. It was borderline nudity, and she goes out and does something like that, and wants to instigate violence. You understand? Because you understand that. Look, if I go, especially where I am now, with something that's like a shirt that's super provocative or containing a symbol that the local people think are that's a no-go, people are gonna come up to me. They're gonna have some questions. If they aren't outright, hostile and try and beat me up, or attack me or throw things at me, right? And to her, I think that was a way for her to instigate something, to start, to get me involved in a confrontation, all right? Which is kind of sick, because I don't know what it is, but some girls just have this, they like violence, they like conflict, and I cannot think of any other reason, because it was pretty cold that day too, okay? It was pretty cold that way too. There was literally no reason to do it, especially on that day. I mean, in any other way, I would have looked at it and would have been like, wow, that's really, damn, that's kind of attractive. But the fact that, beyond a reasonable doubt, I believe that was to get me involved in some kind of scuffle or conflict and whatever, And the guys who are listening, you would also understand that, when you're out with her, with your girl or with anyone you've been with, it's kind of frustrating sometimes, when everybody has their eyes on her, I'm not speaking, from a place of insecurity and jealousy. But you do understand, it's going to attract a certain kind of attention, It's gonna attract a certain kind of it's gonna attract attention that you don't want, It's not gonna be positive. It's not gonna be positive. Because there are other guys, eyeing her, and the other thing that was also so crazy, right? And I wouldn't even be surprised if this video turns into a 2-hour long monologue of me just telling these stories, but I'm remembering as I'm saying them. The other thing she always used to do is when we used to go out, she used to ask me, why are these people looking at me? They're just judging me. They're just judging me. They can't get enough of me. Must be jealous of me, While at the same time looking down on me, but also being jealous of me. You understand? Like, she always used to do that. Why are the people looking at us? Why are the people looking at me, actually? Because she was someone who, really, really, really liked herself. She really, really, really enjoyed looking at herself, right? All things me. That was her. That was her kick in life, And she always used to go around asking about, why are these people always looking at me? And you know what? Some of those people, look, there was also a point where I looked a bit freakish, My hair was super long. I was wearing torn clothing. I was wearing like old shoes and stuff, Like I kind of looked like a junkie, So even then, I had the same kind of feeling, but in a way it made sense, Because if you do something that's different, like you're going to stand out, But I noticed that the people she was talking about, they didn't even... They had like a glance for a second and then they went on with their day, And this would be like at a restaurant or at a bar or in the shopping center or the supermarket, wherever, wherever. And she would always talk about that, and she would always use that, to fuel this negativity. Let's talk about these people who are staring at me right now. At me. Let's take like a very normal, just a normal thing, someone just acknowledging you, like looking at you and then carrying on with their day, and turn it into like an attack on me. Me. And so, this segues nicely into the next topic, which is the endless requests for me to take pictures of her. We go anywhere. She wants a photo shoot, She wants a photo shoot. Because she was quite an attractive girl. She was actually beautiful to me, and to a lot of other people as well, And what also makes this really sad is that I've known this person since I was 6 years old, And she was actually a really nice person. She was, when we were younger. There was so much hope, But the endless requests for photo shoots, anywhere that you can think of. Go to the mall, photo shoot. She wants to go have a cigarette in the garden, photo shoot. There was like this little area, right outside her house, or I should say her parents' house. And every time we go out there, photo shoot, it's a constant thing. It just happened time and time and time and time and time again. And, that on its own, I don't even know if you can write that off, I don't even know if you could if that could happen and you can still maintain on its own that, this is completely normal, Let me give you an extreme example. One of her parents' friends, right, that friend, her husband had died, okay, and there was a funeral. There's a funeral planned. So she had this bright idea and asked me if I wanted to go to the funeral, I don't know these people from Adam. I don't know who they are or whatever, but okay, let's go to the funeral. Let's honor this person. Or not honor them. Okay, maybe that's a bit pretentious of me to say, but let's just go there and, see what just go for the sake of going. So we went. And the funeral was happening, and it was quite a somber event, It's depressing, It's like, this person's being laid to rest, and that person had a family there. And those people are sad, man, obviously. this is not a revelation. But you know, shortly after that happened, right? Guess what? The funeral just ended, okay? And she had known this person, not the person who had died, but the person whose husband passed away. And right after that, she comes up to me, she tells me, I want to, let's go take some photos. Now where? You know, we're at a graveyard. You know, oh no, we'll just go over there, we'll find a place. You know, and this isn't the strangest thing, you know. I've done it before when I was younger, you know, when I was like 16, 17, 18, and it was a big thing for me. Oh, spooky graveyard, this is so cool, you know. It's like, rock on, this is grim, this is sick, dude. But then she found those gravestones and those statues. I still have the pictures. And she's like, let's do a photo shoot. And me at the time, you know what? I was a bit of a pushover in this relationship, you know. It was only nearing the end where I started, you know, retaliating. But, you know, we'll get there. So she wanted to do a photo shoot. And so we did, okay? We were just at a funeral, and now she's posing and being a friggin' model, you know, in this graveyard, okay? And like I said, when I was younger, I thought that's the coolest thing ever. But now that I'm getting older, you know, it's quite strange, you know. It's quite strange. So, after that happened, okay? After that happened, and let me just also emphasize this about the whole photo shoot thing, because you might think, oh, this is just a pet peeve of this guy that's talking right now, you know, like he's just a bit of a hard ass and he needs to learn how to have some fun. It's not like that. You know why? And I don't know if this is normal with girls. I actually don't know. You know, I've only ever been with like 5 or 6 people, you know, in my whole life. But she had folders on her computer. Thousands of folders. I'm not joking. I'm not even exaggerating. She had thousands of folders in there. And within these folders, you know, there were like an immeasurable amount, an uncountable amount of pictures. And of what, you may ask? Of her. She used to take so many pictures of herself, and you know, I think like maybe a quarter of them other people took, you know, for these photo shoots, you know, for the guys, the army of guys that were around before I ever showed up, you know. But the rest of them were just her taking pictures of herself. You could see like on the same day as well. Selfies, you know. Selfies. Good old selfies. Selfies and selfies and selfies. All over. And there were so many. There's so many. And you're asking me like, okay, how do you know this? You know, how did you snoop on her? No. She'd invite me over. And she'd tell me, yeah, come sit next to me on the bed, you know, with that strange, weird, like occult drape, you know, on the wall. And I'd sit next to her, and what'd she do? She pulls out the laptop. It's like, we're gonna look at some pictures right now. And for hours, I'm not even joking. And you can hear, you know, my tone has changed a little bit, you know, because I'm remembering this stuff as I'm speaking. And it's just so bizarre, you know. She pulled out her laptop. She opened up those folders. God, there were so many. And she would ask me, what do you think I was feeling in this picture? She would open up the first one, and it's her stupid face, okay, looking at the camera. striking a pose, And I tell her, that kind of looks like, you were having a good time, or you were not, I don't know, like, don't you remember how you were feeling? Like, you're asking me? I wasn't even there. I wasn't even in your life at that point. How would I know, It seems innocent enough, Like, how would you, or does it? Is that a normal thing to ask somebody? How was I feeling in this picture that I took like a year ago? Or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago? And I'd be like, I don't know. She goes on to the next picture. Mind you, in this particular folder, I think there were about 80. And she's like, what about this one? And she would just go on, And I think I was too much of a sap to say anything at the time. But that's what I was made to sit through. She goes, next picture, asks me. And then at some point I told her, listen, whatever's happening right now, we can talk about what's happening right now. But I don't think this is normal. Like, I don't think this is, I said it in a much nicer way. I said, like, this is, I'm not going to try and, like, repeat it verbatim how I said it back then. But I essentially said, this is not normal. This is strange. Like, this is not, people don't do this. Like, why is this happening? What is your goal in doing this? Because it also happens to be that those pictures were taken at times where she was dissociating, right? Oh, and the whole, like, you guys don't understand. You don't understand how deep this goes. And I was with this person for about maybe 4 or 5 months. And I told her, this is strange, what you're doing. And what's strange is, once I said that, it truly, it ignited something inside of her that actually made her want to do it more, Like, once I said that, she started lingering even more on the stuff, at a point where I was just like, what, screw this shit, man. I'm going outside. I'm going to sit on the balcony and have a cigarette. And that's how a majority of the time was spent, Like, there would be pockets in the day. How do I feel in this picture? How was I feeling? It could be a picture that she's taken that day. And she's looking to me, asking me, like, who am I? Essentially. How do you even answer that? Now, I briefly touched on the dissociating thing, because this is a person that's also had, like, I guess you would say, was suffering from some mental illnesses. I guess you would call it that. Because, look, I don't want to discredit. I'm not discrediting and saying, like, those things aren't real. I'm not saying, like, depression ain't real. I'm not saying, like, DID, right? It's not real. I'm not saying schizophrenia is not real. Obviously, those things are real, But the cause is also, like, something that's up for debate, I think. Anyway, so that's what we have so far. The provocative clothing, in order to get a rise and to start conflict. The self-obsession, the photo shoots and all this kind of stuff. That's all tied to her. It's all about her all the time. She's even said that. But we'll get into that, man. We're talking. We're here now, and we're gonna talk about this. Like, if you're still listening, like, you are a true I don't know. I don't know what to say. If you're still listening, but you're a beast, okay? You're an actual beast who's still listening to this. The next thing I wanted to say that it's leading up to are tarot cards and astrology, right? Now, astrology, just like with crystals, right, on its own, it's a hobby, as kind of like pseudo philosophy or guide to life or whatever. On its own, I guess it's not too much of a problem, I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I myself, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on in this world. Although of some things I'm more certain than others. But astrology on its own, it's not a big deal, I guess. It's not a big deal. I had some fringe beliefs when I was younger too, In fact, I had some horrific beliefs when I was younger. That's how I know. Now, on its own, that was cool, like she was into that. Now we get to the tarot cards. Now, once again, the crystals, the drape, now the tarot cards too. Like now you're showing now there's three things already. There's three things already that, there's a trinity now of things that, point its way to the occult in some ways, And I'm not linking everything to that, but these things are more widespread than I think one would believe nowadays, would be able to believe nowadays. Now, she was into tarot cards, and she would always want to do readings for me and stuff. And there were always these choices. If she had to make a choice about anything, she would always be like, oh, consult the tarot cards. She never really did it when I was around, except for the readings that she wanted to do. But she always used to tell me, no, I consulted the tarot cards, and I'm asking a question, and it's this me shuffling this deck, is somehow now whatever I show, there are these meanings obviously to the cards. I'm not going to pretend I understand all of it, but this card will then mean no, you should not make this choice, or there are hard times to come, or there are fortune is on its way, or lovers and stuff, because she, in terms of relationships, that was her. I'd go as far as to say that was that was the thing that she would consult about relationships all the time. And I find that, I don't know, it's a little bit disturbing, if you actually think about it, whether it is an esoteric force, strange, dark, string puller, or just some completely secular by chance thing that you just throw it out there and somehow get an answer back, and it's all random and it's all for fun. Okay. In either of those situations, being so invested as she was, I find it quite disturbing. You know what I mean? And what you'll start to notice about everything that I've told you so far is that it had seemed that this person didn't really have agency. This person's identity was starting to can you decipher? We can check out the archetype, we can chalk it up to the archetype, but this person didn't have their personal substance, their soul, so to speak. Whether you want to take that literally or figuratively, or as a symbol or whatever. This person's soul, man, like, who are they? Like, who is this person? They got all these things. They're interested in all these things from outside, you know. They want to get everything from the outside. But then what ends up happening is everything that you take into yourself from an outside source, whatever it may be, that's what's going to emanate from you. You know? Like, what are your own ideas? Who are you? Where do you draw the line with certain things? What are your morals like? And that, having said that, once again, it leads in absolutely perfectly, you know. With the next topic, which is the borderline personality that she could not stop talking about. Now, this person had druggy parents. You know, these they were using basically when she was still very young, you know, these were wealthy people at a point. And they like doing coke and stuff, you know. And, you know, there was also a lot of infidelity in the family, you know. This is what she told me, but you know what? At the end of the day, I mean, like, it was believable, you know, because she kind of confided this stuff in me. And, you know, at the time, it was a horror show knowing, because I've known these people. I've been to birthday parties there, and these people have always been nice to me. And I really thought, you know, these people were, like, cool, you know, like, really cool. They weren't warped, you know, they weren't screwed up. But it turns out that's what it was, you know. There's a whole lot of cheating and shit going on, you know, a lot of drug use, you know, and some of these things, you know, when you're doing that and you have kids, right, and you have kids, it's very possible that even if your children do not know or aren't even able to understand what's going on, you know, these things can bleed into the family life. And they can manifest, you know, they can manifest in certain strange negative behaviors. They could manifest as something which, how can I put this? You know, like, they could manifest as like fears, certain fears that the children are developing. Like, there's a whole bigger picture, right? Something that I've also noticed and just wanted to say that I just thought of is like, you know, for my whole life, I also believed that everything was just ignorance and stupidity and basic human evil, right? But there's a bigger picture. Doesn't matter what you believe. Doesn't matter if you are an atheist, an anti-theist, a Christian, a Muslim, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, if you're an agnostic or whatever. I'm telling you, all right, that I think for everybody, you know, there's a force around you. Many, actually. And your actions and the things that you do, you know, and your beliefs and your morals and your sins and your acts of kindness and goodness, all those things, they have an effect on your immediate surroundings, I think. You ever wonder why a person walks into a room and all of a sudden you feel like this person is completely fucked? You know, this person's insane, dude. Like, this person, I don't know anything about them. No, I don't know nothing about it. I don't even know their name, man. But I can tell there's something weird going on. the air is getting thicker. The adrenaline starts pumping. And a certain type of fear, a fear and a disgust and an unease starts to brew. So you can believe whatever you want, you can believe whatever you want, but I'm telling you, the things that we expose ourselves to, what we do to other people, what we do to ourselves, you're making attachments, Things are seeing you. They're seeing you. And they might like you so much that they'd like to stay. Whether you want to take that literally, or a friend of mine always used to say, if you want to attribute that to negative thought forms, negative energy, man. If you want to put it like that, Even on the most fundamental, secular, basic, scientific level, what goes around comes around. If you jump into the pool, you're gonna be wet, bro. If you walk into a fire, you're gonna burn. I'm sorry, I digressed. But that's my point. So her family was doing all this kind of shit, okay? Her mom also went through a really tough time. And I really feel sorry for her because her mother, she was suffering from quite a very serious illness. And they did believe, I think, at a certain point that she was going to die. And but then what ended up happening again, also this person's mother, made attempts on her own life sometimes, which I completely believe, because I was there. I met these people, I'm not clairvoyant, man. I'm not even intuitive. I'm not even an intuitive person. I'm so, yes, I don't even know if I can say that word anymore. But I'm so brain dead sometimes, I don't even know what the fuck is going on. But even I could tell. So her mom made attempts on her own life. And these things have effects. These things have effects on people, And so, while she was growing up and all of this stuff was happening, she was also a ballet dancer, my ex-girlfriend. And there's also a lot of stuff going on in that scene where it's like, you're pushing little girls to their limits, and, there's this big thing about the parents, obviously, they want to be proud and you got to be the best. It's for you, kid. It's for you. But, actually, it's just for them. It's for their own glory. It's for look what my son did. Look what my daughter did. I'm not saying that's the case in every situation. But in this particular situation, you better believe that that's what it came down to. So now we're moving on from that, okay? And going back to the borderline. So she also had experiences where she, I think, took like a microdose of psilocybin or something and combined it with cannabis. And she was engaging in sex with this person that she barely knew. I remember actually at the time, she called me, she told me about this person because we were just friends at that point, and I warned her, I warned her, and I said, listen, was it me just being a jealous idiot, wanting things to crash and burn, or was I actually onto something? Don't know. Let's just go for the former, because I don't want to talk too highly about myself, okay? I want to stay close to the ground. Because I know what can happen. if it goes to your head. Okay, bad things. So I told her, like, nah, this guy sounds like a total freak, man. You should watch out. You should be careful. I was still on the phone with her, and she's like, fuck you. It's like, yeah, dude, fuck me. You're right. What do I know? Puts the phone down. Week later, get a phone call with her. She's going into a psychosis, man. What ended up happening was she was sleeping with this guy while under that influence. And she kept, in and out of consciousness. Now she, at that point, attributed it to assault, Now, this guy was also under the influence, But whatever was happening in her mind, or whatever the truth was of the situation, it left a profound, effect on her. At that point, things were already going downhill, but at that point, because this is such a long history, man. I don't even know how long I've been talking. I'll check what I've done. And if you're still here, God bless you. But she had things went. She went into psychosis. She called me on the phone. She told me I was right about this guy. And then I told her I was angry at her because at the time I knew I warned her, and maybe a little bit of me was also like, yeah, I wish she gave me a chance. But I didn't know it went this deep at the time, So I had a more surface level reaction, but I also told her, what, do you need help? And she did. And so I went to her, and, man, she was not in a good state, man. Full-blown psychosis, Man, she was seeing things, she was hearing things, she was feeling disturbances in her body. And, I would stay there. I was still going to college at that point, but I took time, any chance I could, to go there and take care of her. I would sit with her. I would try and calm her down. I would try and do nice things, nice things. What am I even saying? I would try to comfort her. And this was years before we even, maybe 2 or 3 years before we even got together. And yeah, it was terrible. It really was terrible, man. I felt so sorry. And I would look forward to the end of the day to actually, I was in a rush. I was like, I gotta get there, because no one understands this person. She had also blamed her mom, because it seems that her mom initially provided her the first microdose of psilocybin. Now, I don't know if a microdose of psilocybin, because I've been around the block too, but I don't know if a microdose of psilocybin, could really do that. Maybe when combined with cannabis, maybe because of the event and the circumstances. But yeah. So at that time, she was out of her mind, but she still had predictable behavior, at that time, this borderline thing only started coming in later on, because she had started becoming a full-blown alcoholic, in the years that I cut ties with her. To give you just a standard timeline, the things that I'm talking about here happened maybe 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And after I was, after it kind of came to an end, that whole few months that I was taking care of her, I cut contact with her because I found myself in a very similar situation. And, I also, I needed some help, but that's another story, another 2-hour long video that I'll still subject you people to, if you want to hear that. But, I got contact with her. So that's just the timeline. So already 4 or 5 years ago, things started going awry. Now, when I was still with her last year, it would be a very scary thing, she was so unpredictable. It would come to mind, the immediate thing you guys probably think, right? That's a combination of PTSD, perhaps, and, borderline personality disorder coupled with bipolar, there's so many things that you can throw at it, But, everything just, you'll see what I mean as I go along. So anyway, when I was with her a year ago, still with her, she would be all smiles, ready to go, affectionate and everything. And the next second, she would be cold as ice, man. Cold as ice. She don't even want to look at you. She don't want to look at you. She don't want to talk to you. She's starting shit with her parents. She's starting to think about a bunch of ways, starting to remembering and conjuring up and, pivoting the perspective to, find ways that you had wronged her, or, you did something wrong to her, or you hurt her, or, all this kind of shit. And sometimes, it was so unpredictable. It would happen at night, man. It's I just wake up, it's 3 a.m., what a coincidence. It's 3 a.m., 4 a.m. or whatever. And I wake up and I notice that she's awake because she's obviously next to me. It's yo, you aren't asleep yet? And she's I'm uncomfortable. I'm not feeling well. It's oh, what's wrong? What happened? Do you remember the time that you Do you remember what I was understand what I mean? It's dude, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, and look, let's be honest, man. I'm not perfect. I'm not a saint. I'm not I try to be a good person, but I've done bad things, obviously, like all of us, I don't want to lessen it. But the point of me saying that is just telling you, yeah, obviously, I'm not infallible, I also make mistakes, I also mess up. But, she used to do that a lot, and it was so unpredictable. I would, come to her house to pick her up, and I'm there to pick her up, to take her out to go buy her some new headphones or something. And immediately after that, she'd be I'll just be on the phone. I was hi, this is going to sound so silly, but I'm hi, I'm here, ready to go. Anytime that you're ready, let's do this thing. Let's go have some fun. You know what she'd say? Fucking angry now? You angry? You angry at me? You angry again? Something like that. And I'd obviously be what? No. Of course I'm not angry. I mean, nothing happened. You can even hear it in my voice. I'm completely fine. I'm not even being passive aggressive. I'm just yeah, let's rock, let's just do what we gotta do. And this kind of behavior, it would just be so constant. It the whole way through a relationship. Now you're probably asking me, or you probably want to ask me, dude, after you saw all of this stuff, why would you still continue to stay in this relationship? And the truth is, I also, this was the first person that I had ever liked. This was the first person that I saw even as a child. And I thought to myself, wow, so this is what a girl is like. This is, and I was young. I was like 6 or 7. So, my own infatuation played a role in this as well, because she was the girl that everyone wanted. She was the girl that, the one that got away, the one that was always friendly, that you could be friends with, but you can never have. And now, coincidentally, after all this stuff happened, after all this terrible, terrible shit happened, and these strange habits and strange beliefs and disturbing, after that, now all of a sudden there's a chance. Now, I didn't know this at the time. Because look, to give you just a good view, or a good perspective, right? Or one that you'll be able to understand. Like, I was about 19 years old, and I used to hang out with her. We were just friends, maybe token it up, listening to music. She really liked the music that I listened to. Then when I was 20, I didn't see her for a while. And then when I was maybe 22, started hanging out with her again, and then didn't see her anymore because we also used to have like fights and stuff. And I also used to wonder to myself, why am I with this? Why am I hanging out with this person? Because a lot of these things, a lot of these signs, they started coming up. And then when I was 24, this is where that shit happened with the microdosing and the this and the that and the whatever. I might be getting the ages wrong, but anyway. And then after that, I didn't see her again until I was maybe 28 or something like that, somewhere around there. And then that's when we started to get into a relationship, because that's also something you need to know. We're not talking about teenagers here. We're adults, At least in the eyes of the law, we're adults. And I digress. So the borderline thing, yeah. So it's multiple personalities, but I don't even know if you could really call them personalities, because they're so fleeting and they change so quickly and stuff, And every time it feels like you're dealing with a new person. And but there's no substantiated personalities. No one's these people who suffer from it, they give it names, It's always found to be very strange. They give it names. Oh, that's Johnny, and Johnny, he likes cream soda, but then there's Jackie. Jackie doesn't consume sugar. You know what I mean? It's not like it was at that level. But yeah, it was enough to disturb me. It was enough to disturb me. And I mean, I've seen some things. A lot of my friends too. I think my friends have actually seen much more than I have, It's a very scary world, man. I'm sure a lot of you have too, And I'd actually love to hear about it, I don't take pleasure in listening to your horror stories, but it's good to get it out there. It's good to make people aware. Doesn't matter in what form, what form or what genre your horror story is from, it could be anything, Very interesting, the darker side of life. It's interesting, right? It's interesting. But, you just got to be careful. Sometimes it can get too interesting, and then all of a sudden you got weird drapes above your bed, and you're doing tarot card readings, and you start believing that astrology is 100%. You understand what I mean? So with that being said, even though her personality used to switch up like this, like constantly, she always maintained this self-interest. Now, guys, come on. I'm not fooling anyone when I say, I'm not going to say, I don't care about myself. This is all about other people. So obviously, guys, obviously I and you, we all care about ourselves. We all care about furthering our cause. We all care about what's the best for us, because at the end of the day, that's all we have, really. We don't have anybody else. Yeah, we can have someone living with us. Yeah, we can have someone supporting us in one way or another. But when that person disappears, or God forbid, something happens to them, it's just you. Which in its own way is a fantastic thing, but it's also, it's also kind of sad in a way. But my point in saying this is that, yes, we all have a vested interest in our own well-being and our own progress in life. Doesn't matter what direction you want to go. We all want to have enough money to live, for now anyway. We all want to be healthy. We all don't want to be seen as like the village freak, you know what I mean? Like walking down the street and all of a sudden like people are throwing vegetables at you and telling you to get out of town. You understand? Like, obviously, we want to be different, we want to think of ourselves as unique, but we don't want somebody to come up to us, and chase us out of town because we're that freakish, We want friends, we don't want hostility from other people. So in short, we care about ourselves. But now it leads into the next thing, the narcissistic behavior, right? So we already talked about the endless amounts, amount of pictures this person had of themselves, these folders, and actually checking them out and probably doing it in her free time as well. Those were just the times that I know of. And you better believe that the 15, 16, 20, 25, you could actually, guys that came before me were subjected to the same thing. You understand? It just so happens I was last one in line in this particular situation. What's happening right now with her, I have no idea. Cut this person off, Or actually, it's funny, she cut me off, but we'll get there at some point. But she was always talking about how different she was to everyone else. She was always talking about how her spirituality, her scientific knowledge, her reading of people, her, her insights to this and that, her knowledge about movies, how altruistic she was, because she actually, and she was quite altruistic, if I'm not getting it wrong, it was just like, she was doing good things for people, she was doing things for the good of others, and I'm sure at some point that was true. But she was always harping on and on and on about like how fucking great she was. And, but also then using that to prop herself up and push other people down, Maybe it's a bit late to mention this, but she was also one of the people, the self-proclaimed, like goths, man. The alt chick, dude. The alt chick. She really took pride in that. I'm not like the other girls, dude. Meanwhile, we know at this point the whole gothic alt chick thing is also, just another archetype, that, I don't think really carries a lot of substance. Like in terms of what it used to be. I think it used to be like a fringe subculture, but now, man, that's like the most basic thing, everyone knows what it is. Everyone likes the aesthetic, dude. Everyone's always talking about the aesthetic, man. I like that aesthetic, dude. And that's what they're using. That's what a lot of people are using these days. I mean, I'm not saying they're posers per se, because I don't even know if like being goth in itself, was ever that real to begin with. Any of these subcultures, really. But if it wasn't just for looks, but they're using it, and she saw herself as this person, and she was this spiritual arbiter, dude. Like she could decide, she could feel, what kind of energy is coming from who's who. And then once again, it's tying into this whole crystal belief, like this idea of like being able to scry, this idea about like trying to predict the future, these tarot cards, man, the drape, the multiple personalities. Do you understand what I'm trying to, or not even, no, I don't think even I understand, but come on. You guys would know, if you put these things together, it's starting to paint a picture, right? It's starting to paint a picture. I myself, when I was younger, had a big interest, I had a big interest in the occult and Satanism and, all these crazy, crazy things. I was practicing at a point, what I mean? Like, I wasn't killing animals, I wasn't hurting anybody, as I thought, I said myself, I suppose. I wasn't going after, people to hurt them or anything, I was just a lost person looking for meaning in life and feeling that at that time what was being pushed upon me, I wanted to be the antithesis of what was being pushed on me. So I would know, you understand? I would know. I have experience with this stuff, and it's all behind me now. Thank God, that I'm very weary of that stuff now. But I hope you would understand that now, a certain picture is coming together. I'm not definitely not implying that, okay, this is all some kind of devil shit that happened, and now, this is why this person ended up this way. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all, okay? But, it certainly makes you think. It certainly does make you think at the end of the day, like, what the fuck is going on here? Now, getting back to her behavior, she would prop herself up. I mean, and she would even do it to me, And also the very degrading way that she would speak about the people that she used to be with, Like, why were you with them then in the first place? There would always be this excuse, And it's always her later finding out, oh no, that this person is so-and-so, and, they were beneath her. She's the actual enlightened one. This human being with this crazy, crazy, fractured mind, This, what you could always say, like, this MK Ultra mind. No, this is the person you need to listen to. This is the person with the right ideas, The person that is like, so obsessed with themselves to the point of like, if they had a copy of themselves, they'd be married to themselves. I guarantee you that. Now that's the person we want to listen to. She's got the right ideas, guys. Everyone sit down and listen. An enlightened woman is speaking. You understand? Like, what the fuck is that? But, so it's preposterous, it's bizarre, it's unhinged. But here we are. And these things happen. These things generally happen. Genuinely happened. Now, another thing that would also happen. I don't know if it could fallen into the other categories, but like the manipulation. Man, this person would lie and lie and lie and tell lies upon lies. This would also probably help to give you some perspective, but in the time that this stuff was happening, she had recently got out of a relationship with someone else. And she was still reeling about that person, you know. And she actually cheated on that person, the person she was with, that was before me, with me. So now I can understand that you might think like, wait, now it all makes sense. This guy is just some douchebag. Dude, he stole this guy's girl, man. Actually, this guy's the freak. But it's not like that. She was alluding to me that the relationship was over and she wanted to do stuff. And at that time, being like wide-eyed and hopeful about it, I was like, hell yeah. You know? And she wasn't over with this person. And in fact, when I found out about it, I actually called this guy. I called this guy to tell him. Like, because part of me was angry that it wasn't over, but a part of me felt bad for him. And I knew this guy personally as well. That's the worst part. And this guy is a whole other story, man. But I would say he's at least more innocent, you know. He's more innocent, but he was, God, this guy was dumb. I mean, I probably sound like the biggest asshole ever at this point. You guys probably think that by now, but it's okay to think that, because I am in some ways, you know. In some ways I am. But she didn't end it off. I called this guy and she actually took the phone from him, killed it so he couldn't hear, you know. And fearing that I would get into contact with him in another way, she told him, you know. And then as retaliation for that, apparently this guy was rolling on the floor crying because they had been in a relationship for like 3 years. Now apparently he was rolling on the floor crying, and I can guarantee you he also did some fucked up shit. Like I can guarantee it. I know it, you know, in my heart. But in retaliation, he told her, this person that I was with, after finding out that she had cheated on him with me, right? He had told this person that he had fantasies about her mother and her sister. And in her messed up mind, like, that's already kind of fucked. Like, that's already kind of messed up. And if it is true, why would you even say that to somebody? Like, let it be a fleeting thought and let it go. You understand? We all get crazy thoughts sometimes, but you gotta let that shit go. But nah, he had to tell her. And she, being like this super enlightened, cool, mega smart, crystal using, astrology believing, occult drape wearing, tarot card reader with multiple personalities and seeing things and hearing things, she was like, you know what? That's worse than what I did. Your thought crime was worse than my physical cheating. And that night she broke it off with him, or so I thought. Came running to me. And even though I knew it was wrong, I was too blinded by the things that I wanted, the things that I wanted to be true. And I initiated that relationship. Well, she did in a way, but... And then that's when all this... So just to give you a bit of context, while all of these things were going on, there was still this guy in the background who had also been subjected to this manipulation, this this abuse almost. But it does make you think, right? I'm talking about this guy now that she cheated on with me. It does make you think. After you get cheated on so many times, why would you still let this person into your life? Why would you still be with them? Makes no sense, right? Me personally, if it even happens once, that's game over. But for him, it wasn't just even once. I think it happened multiple times. And it's fucked, dude. Like, he just kept going back to it, man. He was a simp. But you know, these labels and stuff, I mean, goes way deeper than that, man. Something ain't right. This shit's evil, man. Now, while all of this is happening, everything that I've explained thus far, from the beginning up until now, while being in a relationship with her, we got this guy in the background. And she would go into fits of like extreme guilt where she would like cry about this guy. And the weird thing is that she would come to me. This is the thing about the agency I was talking about earlier. You know, the personal agency. She would ask me what to do. She would ask me how to feel. She would ask me to remind her that this guy was bad news. And being so driven by desire and just like idiocy, you know, because that's what I was experiencing. I was a friggin' dumb guy. I was a dumb guy, you know, not thinking with my head. And I would reinforce that. I would say, nah, you know, this guy is bad. And I've personally almost to the point hated this person since the first time I met them, you know. Like, I'm going to use the word again, but he was like the antithesis to what I am. You understand what I mean? That's at least how I viewed it, you know. I really didn't like this guy. But she would ask me to remind her, like, why this guy is bad, why this guy's a piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. And I just always found that to be, I don't know, you know, it's like, once again, it's tying into this stuff. I can't paint the bigger picture for you and tell you exactly what it is, but something ain't right. She had no agency. She kept asking me. And she kept meeting up with this guy too. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, but like, girls like to do this thing. Maybe guys do it too. I don't know. I've never met a guy that does this, but when you break up with someone and you go have the closure talk, where you go and sit, you go to a restaurant and you talk to each other, and, you know, what I'm saying? Like, they have this talk where it's like, okay, they're going to finally now put everything behind them so they both can go, move on. Do you know how many closure talks they had? 7, 8. And every time I would be completely assured, you know, I'd be assured this will be the last time. This will be the last time that this ever happens, you know, like this will never happen again. And, you know, I was very skeptical after like the third time, but it just kept happening. And you know what? Honestly, at that point, you know, I should have known at that point, like, okay, nah, man, fuck this. This is not getting better. She's not over this guy. Like, she also kept saying things about, like, you could be a rebound. You could be a rebound. And I was like, yeah, but surely you would know. You see, blind and fucking dumb, man. That's what I was. And I can admit that, man. I was a fucking idiot. Really, really I was. Even getting this out, even talking into this microphone, you know. And hearing myself, saying these things, so dumb. But anyway, so this also plays into that manipulative aspect. You understand what I mean? She's playing like two guys, like a fiddle, And after being in a relationship with someone for 3 years, you sleep with me like a week after you break up, while still being attached to this person. And that was just like the immediate. That person was like in the immediate, or it was in a time that was very close to, what I'm trying to say is just like it was a recent thing. Which leads me into another thing she liked to talk about. She liked to constantly talk about her exes all the fucking time. And, I don't know if that's normal. Like, I don't know if that's normal. I don't think so. I would think it's not, When I'm with someone, I don't go around talking about the girls I've been. I don't even bring it up, Maybe if they ask me once, how many girls you? I had so many. But anyway. And I always want to dig. Isn't that weird? I always want to dig. Oh, what was sex with her like? Or, what did she all this stuff. He's like, why are you digging for this stuff, man? It's a part of your life that's over, you got to put it behind you, unless you have like feelings for this person. And I know you might probably think like, oh man, this guy's so insecure. He can't even talk about the past. Like, okay, no, dude, no worries. If that's what you think, go up to your girl or your wife right now or whatever. Go talk to them about it, In fact, talk to them about it daily, all right, for a week. Then come back to me, Come back to me. And then we'll see what kind of effect that has. But anyway, something on the more like disturbing side of things is, I don't know if it's ever happened to the guys, I'm specifically relating it to the guys, or putting it out there for them, because I am a guy, so it's coming from the male perspective. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people being like, but you don't understand, people are different, blah, 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 come on. Which is true, but this is not for you if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? But has it ever happened to one of the guys where you entered into a relationship, right? Or you were busy with someone. You were engaging in coitus, okay? You were doing the deed. You were making love, whatever you want to call it, right? And a certain climax was attained, and now it's over, right? Now it's over. And then they turn around. They look you in the eye, and they just say like, yeah, I remember back in so-and-so, there was a guy that just like came inside me, and then he took me to the pharmacy to get a Plan B pill. Like, just in that situation, the day's been going perfectly fine, that deed just happened, and they dumped that shit on you. To me, because it hasn't happened once, it's happened many times with different people. And to me, that is also just like, there's something sinister about that. You understand? The timing, the timing and the type of information that they're relaying to you. It's fucked up, dude. Like, what is the purpose in doing that? And I think, it's completely negative, It's completely, the purposes of doing that is to make you feel, is to take the wind out of your sails a little bit. Like, they want to make you feel ashamed. They want you to think about their past partners, because maybe that's what's on their mind. And then the questions come up, like, but what, am I not good enough? Am I not, do I not, am I not better? Am I not on the same level? Because these are normal thoughts that a person would have. I think, at least, like, and the timing of it as well. It's like, you just engage in this like act of love, which I hope most of the people who are listening to this view it as, because that's what I do, Like I've engaged in loveless coitus, okay? It's true. But, ever since I got a fucking conscience and worked on that, it's changed. It's gotten better. It's been viewed differently. Not just as something hedonistic. And, I just find that very, very disturbing. And once again, with everything said, the way it's been said, all the information you got so far, you can also link it back to that, like it's painting a picture. And the picture is looking strange. It's looking, it's not nice. It's malevolent. It's disturbing. It's off, And what would be the purpose of telling someone that in that moment, at least, as well? How do you want to make me to feel? How do you want me to feel? Which segues very nicely about the exes and the, she would constantly talk. She would constantly talk about exes, what they did, how psychotic they were. And you know what? She still kept those pictures. Those pictures I was talking about, the thousands. You think there was like a thousand pictures of, 1,000 folders full of pictures of herself. That's weird, dude. She has documented every guy she's been with. She has it there on hard drives. And I would ask her, like, what is this? Why do you still have this? It's this attachment, and I guess the themes are coming together. It's like this attachment. She's attached to this stuff. These people, she's made an attachment with these people. The same people she would claim that has abused her. And I think it's very well maybe possible if you get abused by someone, but it's mixed in with pleasure and, just fuck things that I don't even want to really speak about. In a sick way, it does come out that way. You form an attachment with that person, like a trauma bond or some shit. I don't know. There's so much lingo with this stuff. I don't even know. But at the end of the day, she never got over even the first ex-boyfriend she had. And what I guess people would call that baggage. But I'm telling you, man, if you're moving through life, especially at this age, I think, and you're still holding on to shit like that, when the tide gets rough and you gotta start swimming, man, the only thing that's gonna do is just gonna weigh you down, and you're gonna drown. You're gonna go down to the ground. You know what I mean? You're gonna go to the bottom of the sea. You're gonna die. It's gonna psychologically kill you at the end of the day, because we aren't meant. I think, even on the most basic level, to hold on to things to the point where they remain in the forefront of our minds. And the connotation also, it's negative, because all of these guys did something wrong, all these guys hurt her in some way and stuff. So it's through the lens of pain, and also desire, you know what I mean? Also desire. She misses these people. But think about it, if you're monogamous, like me, for example, and probably a lot of you too, what is that saying exactly? It's not love. What, you can love 16 sexual, sexual, true, pure love, for 16 people at the same time. Unless you're some kind of freak polygamist, right? Because that's something I think is... Oh, we got so much to talk to, man. This is just my first video. It's gonna get crazy. It's gonna get crazy, but it won't be this long, I swear to God. This is just like the first time I ever thought about putting this out there. And but yeah, she has this desire. She's attached. She's got these attachments, these strings, man. They're pulling and they're inserted. They're in the heartstrings, man. And they're spanning on all kind of different directions. And what good could that do at the end of the day? What is that gonna bring to you? Suffering. Self-imposed suffering. I can think back at my first girl I've ever been with. She's dead now. I lost contact with her out of high school, and not too long after that, she died in a car crash. I can still think about her and think about her fondly, Think about her fondly, She was nice. She had 9 fingers, by the way. She was a girl with 9 fingers. She lost one of her fingers, like, on a clothing line. It was man, these horror stories, they just keep coming. But I can still think of her fondly. I'm like, yeah, I remember her. And she was a nice person. And the very short time we were together, it was fun. It was cool. But that's where it stops. I never think, like, she was the one that got away. If every single person is the one that got away, like, fuck, man, you're doomed. Who's gonna help you? Like, who's gonna finally be the one? There is no one. You've ruined that. Pair bonding. My friend always talks about pair bonding and the ability to pair bond. It's a real thing. Now, you better believe it. After a certain amount, your ability to pair bond gets fucked, and you got nothing. There's only... You can do certain things a handful of times. And nearing the end, you'll do it one more time, and that'll be the time that one-shots you and removes your ability. In this case, being pair bonding. You just keep sleeping around and sleeping around and sleeping around your body, like you're getting attached and attached and attached and attached and attached. But those people are running away with those attachments, whether it be circumstantial, whatever the reason may be. And your gift, right? Your gift, your sanctity, has been given to people who are no longer there. Now, what do you got? Now, that's just like an analogy, but it comes back to pair bonding. You don't have the ability to imprint on someone anymore, right? Like, you don't feel it no more. It's been taken out of you because you're just giving it away for nothing. So, my point is, in making this, right, because I think I gotta end it here, because otherwise, I don't even know if anyone's gonna see this, but the reason why I also just made this is that you'll see these behaviors. They're prevalent in a lot of people. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys, you've seen it too. And I guess all I have to say about it is, like, let it serve as a warning, like, recognize some of these signs. Like, I'll go in, I'll decide if there's if I can make a follow-up, if anyone has any questions about this, that I can answer, like, in a follow-up video or whatever. It doesn't matter. Or I'll just answer it in the comment. It doesn't, if there even are, I don't even know what's going to happen. But this was the archetype, the archetype that's been forming in recent years. And also, I mean, it's quite obvious, like, the undertones, the undertones to all of this stuff the attachment, the weird occult shit, you know, the psychological damage, the do as thou wilt behavior, you know, like the depravity. I haven't even touched on the depravity, the sexual depravity, the BDSM, the weird shit with animals, like. But I will in a follow-up, but I think I gotta end it here. So I just want to say, thank you. God, if you made it to the end of this video, yeah, there's something wrong with you. I don't know how you could have stuck through this, but thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you learned something today. And yeah, I hope to get some feedback, some questions, some whatever. And until then, have a good one. See ya.